Hello, welcome to Reanimated, episode 288. This is the podcast about zombies and pop culture and TV and movies and books. And hey, I'm Stuart, and joining me is the intrepid, nope, that's your word.
Haha.
The interesting H.A. Conrad.
You can say it. You can say intrepid.
Well, here you are. What a glorious day it is, at least on, I'm like 2,400 miles away from you, but what a glorious day it is to be talking about zombies. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, it's you know, the pollen is out, the sun is shining. I have to say, I was, when you texted me asked whether I had watched the episode, I was like, oh no, that does not bode well.
Cannot be a good thing.
Because the only time you ever text me is when something is a dumpster fire.
It's when it's so bad that I just have to do a scream even before we podcast.
Right. So with that spoiler alert, we are talking about Fear the Walking Dead, the episode that is episode 9 of this season, Things Left to Do. And yeah, and then but before we get to that, we have some news items, but and ahead of that, just a quick little update in general. Here in New York, we are getting the vaccinations going. It's not the same in other parts of the world. I mean, I'm sure you saw the news about India, which is pretty daunting and upsetting. Which they are, you know, they have got some cases kind of out of control, so much so that they have basically stopped distribution of the vaccines that they had been producing there. And those vaccines were going to other countries that could ill afford to not have them, such as like Pakistan. And I cannot remember the other country that was mentioned in the article I read. But regardless, the reason why they are not distributing is because they need them in India, because it's now like something like over 200,000 cases. Which is pretty significant, and their vaccination rates are not where they need to be. They've put some lockdown measures in place, but I think that this just sort of goes to show what, you know, we really are in all this together in terms of like a world effort for vaccinations. So hopefully that will help, at least within India, but that means other places cannot get the vaccinations. In the meantime, here in the U.S., J&J is still paused, as is AstraZeneca, though that had never been approved here. And both of those vaccines appear to be causing some rare clotting issues in very, like, a tiny number. So that's
1 in a million.
It's really
to get sick.
And believe me, I am not making light of a very serious condition, because I know that that one person has died. But considering the number of people that have been vaccinated and the alternative, and honestly, if you look at the rates in terms of like what, say, birth control causes, this is a little, to me, it's very short-sighted, and I feel like they should ramp up the production again.
Well, yeah, you can ramp it up, but
I mean,
unfortunately, the confidence has been destroyed.
Oh, I know, which is like, I don't know.
As much as it's like so frustrating, because yeah, okay, 1 person out of 7 million has died, and that is tragic. But also 1 in 100 die, or 1 in 100 who get COVID die, right? So just freaking, let's roll out that vaccine.
And, you know, one of my friends asked me if there were no other vaccines available, would I have taken the AstraZeneca or the J&J? And the answer is absolutely. So, you know, but I know that some people don't feel that way, but that's just my thing is like, I know people, lots of people who have gotten the J&J, no issue at all. So, you know, I just think this is such a tough thing to happen. So I hope that they I don't know what they can do at this point, but I digress. So we've got some cool news items today.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the top. And this is probably unsurprising. I mean, if you've been paying attention to Fear the Walking Dead for the last 3 years, it's surprising that more people haven't asked for what Garrett Dillahunt did, which was to be let go off the show last season.
Right.
And then they wrote this whole plot in order to get him off the show. And Godspeed, Garrett Dillahunt. He's already landed his next project. It's Where the Crawdads Sing. I'm not sure if it's a series or a movie. I don't remember anymore. But sounds like it's something that's up his alley,
Yeah.
and we get to see him in Army of the Dead, and he's even in that trailer, which we're also going to talk about.
I agree. Like I am, and again, reserve. We already spoiled slightly, but all my fears have come true with the
God
next
damn it.
episode. So John Dory was
Honestly,
one.
these are not the fears that I had. These are a whole new set of fears that have come true in this episode, but go on.
Well, my biggest fears when this all happened with the last episode is that they just were gonna go completely off the rails, which they did, and just have a total lack of direction and a mishmash of trying to sort of find a center again, and that's pretty much what has happened. My feeling about John Dory, and he is one of the reasons why I was stuck with this show, because even though there were definitely some saccharine and maybe overly sentimental, overly, sort of man as good, soul and all that stuff with him, like being a person who is like uncorrupted, and that theme being the heart of the show. I sometimes they overplayed their hand with him on that, I think, but overall, I think part of it was definitely because Garrett Dillahunt is an amazing actor and was able to do it without seeming like it was unrealistic. Like you believed it, and you believed this character, and this storyline made the show less bleak, and it also gave it definitely to me like a center to go around, and somebody that just was enjoyable to watch. And I did love his relationship with June. I thought that was just like a very interesting thing to do.
He was always such a cartoony character, not cartoony, but comic booky, like with his, his shooting skills.
Yeah,
A lot of aspects of his character were a little bit fantastic, but that was a nice thing for the show.
It was a nice thing, but it was also, I think, one of the reasons why it was successful was because when you play it against the character of June, who is she's had her work, she lost her daughter, she feels like she's lost all hope in humanity, and she was able to find it back, get it back with him.
And strangely, he had preserved his humanity by being an isolationist,
True.
right?
That's true too. But in any case, that part of the show I found totally enjoyable, and so when you get rid of that and then you're like, oh no, they're just going to lose it with all these other characters. And it was I'll be totally blunt, it was even worse than I feared. It was even worse than I feared when you texted me.
But you're getting ahead, AJ. We've got more news.
I know, but anyway, let's just say I will miss Garrett Dillahunt. I wish him well, but I will miss this character dearly.
He's going to go on to do such great things that it's better for him to be off the show.
I agree. And I love
these showrunners are literally the worst.
Oh
and
God,
so
I know.
Good for him.
One tidbit that I did find interesting is that he's like, yeah, I started talking about this in season 5, and it's like, yeah, I can see that. Anyway,
Yep.
But I wish him all the best. I can't wait to see him in other things. And again, it's like one of those sort of bittersweet things where it's like you're gonna miss the character, but you really hope the best for the actor because you just like them a lot. So I hope to see him in much more. And speaking of much more,
we've also got a couple of links, or a link in the show notes to some of the behind the scenes stuff that he took on his last in that last episode that he was in, including some of the action shots with Lenny James where he was getting lassoed and then forgot to duck down out of the shot, which I thought was really funny. And just panning around the crowd of zombies on the bridge during that.
Fun.
And they're all just kind of sticking their tongues out at the zombies, and while they're getting spoken to by the director.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed seeing those kinds of little.
Oh yeah, agree. But we will at least get to see him a bit in Army of the Dead, the newest.
He has that one tiny line in the trailer.
That one line. So I don't know how much he's actually in it, but it was nice to see him. And, hopefully we'll see him other things that are... I want to see him in every series. No. In any case, the Army
I don't know that he's done a lot of movies. Army of the Dead, clearly, but...
Yeah.
He did Mindy Project. He was in Deadwood.
Yeah, I loved him in Deadwood. I thought he was great. But Army of the Dead trailer, let us talk about this. I really, much like friend of the show Kevin, I really just don't know what to make of this.
I mean, I know exactly what this
Well,
is.
I know
This
what to
is
make of.
after watching 4 hours and change of Justice League.
Oh
I,
yes.
this is Snyder and its DNA. This is just like I'm going to show you some real, imagery, and there's going to be some great editing, frankly, with the song, the Gambler, and
Hmm.
this is going to be a great cast. Plot might not be great, frankly.
I love Kenny Rogers like most people do. I love The Gambler. It's a great song. I think that was the best part of this trailer. To be honest with you, was the editing with that song, and they do it was, as you said, classic Zack Snyder. I really got, in my zombie fan bones. I the idea that these are okay. Let's get out with it. These are not zombies. If they can think and organize and carry weapons, they are not zombies. They are something
Ah,
else.
yeah, maybe. I'm willing to give him a pass because he did Dawn of the Dead, 2004, and he played that pretty well. He introduced fast zombies basically at that point, right? Was it him who did it first, or
No, it was 28 Days Later.
was it 28 Days Later came out before that?
Yeah, like that's
But it
definitely
was
not
it was
on.
apocryphal, right? Like it was against the grain. People were a little upset, but also terrified. And he's not gonna. If I was him, I wouldn't do it the same way twice either. So we'll see. Obviously, they are going in a different direction. I don't think that I saw these guys with weapons. Did they have weapons?
I don't know, kind of, but they also, I guess the kind of funny part was the zombie tiger. There's some very like quippy little lines which you would expect. And look, I think it is supposed to be a ridiculous spectacle, and they're going to
Spectacle,
go for
exactly.
that no matter what. And much like Vegas, maybe they're going for that ridiculous spectacle thing. But I will say that the crowds, the CGI, like to show
Looks
how
good.
many. I'm not into it.
I thought it looked good. I thought it looked
Well,
better than some of the CGI in this episode of Fear the Walking Dead that
well,
we're
yeah,
gonna.
but that doesn't take much.
I know that's not much.
And so anyway,
You know
I
what I'm
did
pumped
kind of.
about is the setup of having maybe it's Vegas, maybe it's more than just Vegas, but that is zombie and the rest of the outside. It's the same sort of setup as Peninsula,
Yeah,
where you've got like a functioning world potentially outside, which is the only scenario where a bank heist in a zombie apocalypse makes sense.
right.
So they have to kind of have it that way. But
Well,
I
because
do like
money
that.
has to mean something
Right,
somewhere else, right?
exactly. Exactly. But so it actually shares a lot of plot with Peninsula in that respect. A little bit, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of differences, but we'll see exactly how far.
Well, look, I like Dave Bautista. There were some
Hmm.
really, the usual hero cuts that you would expect from this kind of thing. Also had little of it had a little Fast and Furious feeling to it. Like this is the group of people that is, going to do the heist, but they're going to do it for them and not be taking advantage of him. I don't know. Like it had a
Yeah,
little bit of that going
yeah.
on. But it felt like he was channeling some Vin Diesel a little bit.
Can't believe that there's another one of those movies coming out.
I
I
cannot
keep seeing
believe it,
trailers for
but
it.
I am not shocked. But man, that whole franchise is going to go on forever, I think. And they're bringing back the long dead character of Han, which is crazy. So there you go. I don't know if they'll bring back the long dead character that Gal Gadot plays, but we'll
I don't
see.
remember these people.
You know,
The plots of these movies never stuck in my head, but I know that, yeah.
this is like a very weird thing for me to admit, but my husband loves this movie so much, which is way out of. This is not something he would normally watch, and he has forced me to watch them and a couple of them more than once, and I just can't take it anymore. They're not. I think they're hilarious. They're just, and some of the stunts are kind of ridiculous and fun to watch, but overall, like I just. They're not my thing, but I'm sure we will be forced to watch the next one,
Oh God.
which is the only reason I know that the Londa character of Han is back because my husband's really excited about that. But anyway, I digress. So Army of the Dead. There's also a new anime. And by the way, like we're gonna watch Army of the Dead, and we're gonna
Oh
like
hell
probably
yeah!
we're gonna laugh. We're gonna love the spectacle, or maybe not, and then we'll clearly we're gonna watch this. So never fear. Even though we're kind of like giving it a hard time right now.
I'm pretty high on Snyder right now after the 4 hours of Justice League, and it only sits like better in my head.
Really? Because dude,
Yeah,
no,
it
no.
was it was
And by the
long
way,
and
I
painful, but really, like the dude's got vision, and I'm excited to see what he does with Army of the
I
Dead.
don't know that he does. And by the way, I am somebody that has defended some of the things that he has done, specifically Watchmen related, and the 300. Like, I understand. Like, as a visual director, I think he is really good, and I did like certain things about Dawn of the Dead. Like, I am normally the one that defends him. However, I still haven't been able to get through the full Justice League, and I am somebody who really likes DC characters. I like Justice League. I grew up with, Wonder Twin Powers Activate and all of that stuff. But when you compare it to the Avengers films, like, there is
Well,
no comparison, and it's kind of like, how did you mess this up so badly? If you watch like Avengers, I mean, you can watch. There's definitely some clunkers in that whole like
yes.
series, but Avengers Endgame really just shows how like the Russo brothers did such a fantastic job at winding that whole thing down, and sort of paving the way for the next jump, and the next group. And I just don't feel like that with the Justice League. I don't care about those characters. I don't know. I'm not gonna, I can't get on board with you on this one, but I will still watch.
That's fair. I will grant you that the Falcon and the Winter Soldier has been just blowing my mind, and the
Right.
last episode that they did was so
It
good.
was so good. I mean, and I'm not like the DC, like Justice League. I'm like, okay, we have not even gotten through half of that thing. And I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. I just can't. It's just, anyway. But
Just not dedicated enough.
oh my God, I am so dedicated. It's just, it's like watching a train wreck. I just can't do it. But anyway,
Another thing that
next,
you probably won't be able to watch is this upcoming Resident Evil Infinite Darkness anime series that's coming to Netflix. I think it's coming in July, and there's a trailer now out starring Leon and Claire Redfield and in the White House with zombies. And I'm sure it's going to be bad.
did you notice like so the trailer and this is the thing that normally I say animation has come so far and it looks
It's
really
not the
good.
best.
This has an uncanny valley of weirdness going on with it.
Yeah.
They look very weird and plasticky. I don't know what's going on with the animation here. It's not good.
Yeah, I think they're using similar styles to what they've used in the movies that they've made of this, but they are doing it at a lower budget, I think,
I
and
would say there's
that's what's contributing
definitely,
to it.
yeah, definitely a lower budget involved in this. But, I'm still I'm just going to watch all of this. The only thing I can't watch is Justice League, apparently.
What about the Mia Jovovich movies that we've stopped watching? I thought we were done with Resident Evil.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. If you really
If we,
want to, I can
hey,
do it. But
I think we only have like two left to finish the
all right,
series until
if
they
you
make a
really, if
fifth
you
or
want
eighth
to,
one.
we can do it. I'll slog through them.
All right, you heard it here first, folks.
All right. But in happier news and things that I don't have to slog through or would be willing to watch, there has been some talk of a Negan spinoff, which isn't shocking because I think he's one of the more interesting characters, and there's probably a lot of things that you could do with him. This hasn't been confirmed, but he did say that this is something that has been brought up, and it sounds like he'd probably be open to it. And I do
Yeah,
think he really likes this character in this franchise, so that
I
was
don't
some.
know. I see this news and I'm a little bit like, wow, okay, so based on one episode where you get good critical reviews, you're like, oh, let's do a whole show about it. That just feels so knee jerk. It feels like they're
I don't think it
grasping at
was just about
straws.
this episode, though, because I do think that in terms of characters that have a kind of interesting story arc, he is definitely one of them, and not just in the show, but in the graphic novels. I think that there's lots of stuff to explore there. Although, what kind of a spinoff would this take? I don't know. It's like what sort of, where would they do it? Would this be retro? Would this like be in another, I don't know. Is it sort
Right.
of like his journey afterwards, which I guess it might have to be if they're going to link it up with other things.
We'll have to
But
see if he's still alive at the end of season 11, right?
yeah. But this could also be kind of a tease if they are planning to kill them off. So I'm aware of that too. But in the meantime, Jeffrey Dean Morgan is just, making the most of it, bringing every family member he has onto the show. Apparently,
Seriously.
his son is making an appearance apparently as a walker, which is kind of fun, because they did the makeup, and his son is 11. Which, I mean, man, can you imagine doing this as an 11-year-old? This must be so much fun, right?
Yeah, totally.
So they show him in full on makeup, and I'm just sort of jealous that my dad isn't as cool as Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
Just saying. But in any case, now are you ready to talk about things left to do? Speaking of things left to do,
Things Left to Do, written by Michael Satrazemis, written
other
by
way
Nick
around.
Bernadone and directed by Michael Satrazemis. Okay, deep breaths, HA. This picks up with June digging John's grave, and there's a lot of like weird focus stuff because she's in shock, and I'll give her that. I will not forgive her, however, for digging like a 1 foot deep grave and getting terrible blisters on all of her hands,
Yep.
all two of her hands, on every on her across her palms, and she puts him in the This is a very small gripe, but I'm looking at this, I'm like, how did she possibly? What has she been doing in the zombie apocalypse if she doesn't have calluses? Why isn't
Right.
she wearing gloves? And why did she think that burying John's corpse, or I guess the corpse of his undead self, in this 1 foot deep grave was gonna save him from any kind of like predators or
I
like,
don't even know. It doesn't even make sense. It's just kind of odd because, we all know that she's not actually digging the grave. So would it have taken that much to dig it a little deeper?
right? Back up
Anyway,
the excavator and just
right. Like it just
or have
doesn't,
those production assistants really just put a couple more feet into it.
there's a reason why things are supposed to be 6 feet under, right? Because that's about how far you have to go for things to not dig the corpse up.
That's one of the. I mean, there's probably an argument to be made that possums and raccoons, which would eat this corpse, are probably very thinned out by the zombie apocalypse.
Maybe.
But,
But in any case, they're they were doing exactly what I expected to do in terms of her weird sort of perspective. But then, things get swiftly worse.
But also in that scene, Hill, oh God, everybody's such a jerk.
Yeah.
And Hill is a big question mark for me in this episode, obviously. But she picks up his gun out of the grave, and then she's just holding it. She's not really doing anything. She's sitting there kind of crying, and Hill puts a gun to her head.
Right.
And,
And then they
you
have
better drop it.
Yeah, but it's like this odd exchange. Like we all know that the gun is not about the gun. It's because it was John's. It's got his initials on it. This is something that is pretty much the man. If you're going to take anything, this and the hat are it, right? So that was kind of a strange interaction. And before we get into this episode, the one thing I will say, overall, what felt so strange and disjointed to me is that, and I, feel free to disagree with me, Stuart, but it kind of felt like there were multiple writers or multiple conflicting ideas about what was supposed to happen in this, and not a ton of editing that probably needed to be done, or somehow like honing of the script and the storytelling. And it's such a stark contrast from the last episode that it just, and maybe like part of me was also wondering, like, is this deliberate, like that chaos is supposed to ensue after John Dory dies because he is basically law and order? Is this a little bit of what they were trying to go for? But mostly I just think it's very sloppy show running and storytelling.
It definitely feels extremely patchy. I think we do need it. We needed to start this episode with June. It also ends with June, but there's a lot of absence of June that's felt throughout the rest of the episode after this scene, for sure. And it does feel a little bit like all right, we'll just bookend it with June, and then we'll cover the rest of this garbage that we're going to put in this episode. And so that's quite frustrating because the next scene that we get is this, season 6 Walking Dead Prime adjacent line in the street execution style thing, and that is so dumb.
It's dumb.
Virginia is like walking down the line, pointing her gun in people's faces with zero impact, including at a pregnant lady, but then doing nothing, just yelling at them. And then somehow then Morgan shows up because that's what he's been doing all season. And why and how? It's just.
And then there's a lot of the the sort of posturing and the back and forth. I'm guessing that maybe part of what they did this was to set up the stuff with Strand, maybe. But it was weird, and then they have all the walkie-talkie things that they're doing. And you know what it didn't feel like? It didn't feel like as scary as when Negan had everybody lined up and was going to kill Glenn, which is immediately at least what my mind went to, and I'm like, wow, this is like super unsuccessful. And
it definitely does not rise to that level. And then the payoff, if you want to put that in major air quotes, is when Morgan is like, I'm going to tell you the truth about Virginia and her duplicity and her hypocrisy, because, in theory, she hasn't been towing the lines of the laws of the community. And I'm like, this makes no sense for this storyline.
Right.
Virginia is not a character that they've established to be based on this strict moral code. She literally kills people who are inconvenient to her.
All the
time. She kills people who don't serve enough of a purpose. She shot Morgan and no qualms about that. She's killed dozens of people. She has a whole group of outcasts who she tried to murder, which means they're the lucky ones who got away. She has been killing people who just don't work for her community nonstop. And so for there to be any sort of concept of her leading this strict moral code that then Morgan is going to unravel with his one speech. And it is an absurd premise. It just doesn't work.
Even if that was the case, why would they believe Morgan, right? Yeah. Even if this was true and she was doing this kind of crazy code and they all believe this, why would any of them believe a thing Morgan has to say? They're probably not going to.
He's a stranger to all of them, right? Nobody's ever met Morgan before. It's not like he's John Dory, who they might have believed.
Right. The only thing that may have had impact on them is the fact that her sister killed John Dory, and so maybe that. But even then, we're talking about a community of people that she's built. I feel like their loyalties are still probably going to be aligned with hers, if only from a survivor point of view, much like people would align with Negan from a survivor point of view. And then the whole ridiculous thing, the big reveal with Strand being like, you told me to build an army, but you didn't, know that they'd be loyal to me. And it felt all just very again, chaos thrown together, bad storytelling. There was no payoff. Even when he did that, it's sort of okay, all right, Strand. I don't know. There was just nothing there that made me go, oh, and it felt the rhythm of this whole scene felt very disjointed and kind of false tension, if that makes sense. Didn't feel like there was tension. It felt like they were really struggling to keep it moving. And again, I mean, maybe this is part of the issue with filming during the pandemic and they didn't get enough time to kind of put this together, but I can't believe that that's the case given how they did the last episode. You know what I mean?
Also, Daniel this is not related to what you just said, but I agree with everything you're saying, but also Daniel got whacked in the head again. Remember the last time he got whacked in the head? He had to pretend was an amnesiac.
Right.
And this honestly, this is pretty good makeup. The wound that he gets from that is
pretty significant,
massive. But then they completely, by the end of the episode, it's just a couple butterfly bandages. He's fine. He's just
yep, he doesn't have a dent in his head or a trough in his head, which is definitely what it looked like.
It's I'm a 50, 60, 70-year-old. I can't really tell how old Ruben Blades is. I'm an older man.
Timeless.
And I keep getting hit in the head with rifles, and I'm just fine. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yes, I agree that that whole scene, it falls apart in every way conceivable. And the end result is that Morgan drives off with Virginia, and Strand is yelling at him no, I need her. We need justice. And I'm like, Strand, she's never done anything to you. You literally sold out your group to get in bed,
Right.
like in bed, figuratively speaking, with them. Like he gave them the MRAP, right? Like that
Yeah.
was the thing he did at the end of the last season, and then he, uh, took the job of general, whatever. She's never wronged him, and well, so this is actually probably in character for Strand. He's an opportunist. It's just it feels empty. There's no like actual realization. There's no light bulb moment where you're like, oh my god, it was Strand all along. No, it's
Yeah,
just like,
no, and it's not even clever, which you would expect from Strand, so that's really disappointing. And then the other part is that this whole gun battle that ensues feels weird and stupid. And it even feels like almost in slow motion. It's like, okay, we're gonna grab Grace and Daniel and put them in this thing,
mm-hmm.
and even just all the getaway and Morgan getting Virginia feels like super forced. And then he somehow manages to get her, like, evade everybody else, and but takes her to a place where people know where he's been in, like, the sort of knockdown water tower. And then there's the super weird thing where it's like, okay, now call your people and tell them to keep Grace and Daniel safe. Like, all of this feels really just strangely put together, and like a story, like the storytelling is very sloppy. And
The
like,
annoying thing that happens in this scene also, well, there's a couple. Number one, he's left a map next to Virginia so that she can say their location over the radio.
who does that?
Number
Nobody does
two,
that.
yeah, that's a really silly thing to do. Number two, she confirms that it is Dakota's handwriting on the note. So basically, the showrunners are dumb,
Yep.
and they have actually made it so that Dakota was the one who patched him up after the fight at the
Which,
Gulch.
I think the scenario you and I talked about before would have made a lot more sense if she was a total, like, sociopath or psychopath and, like, is lying about it and somebody else did this. That would have been a much better idea. But no, this is
And
not what they did.
that was Virginia's first response too. She's like, "No way." And then Morgan's like, "I think she can do a lot more things than you realize." And I'm like, "Well, okay." So she's like a
Dakota's
13-year-old.
magic. Dakota is magic, apparently.
Uh, well, yeah. And then the other insanely stupid thing that happens in this scene is, I don't know, like a minute after they say where they are, Sherry and the MRAP show up
Like, how would they even know? I mean,
because they did say their location over the radio
they
and
did,
they
but
could be monitoring.
still, I mean,
But that
how
was
far
so
away
fast.
are they? I don't know. And then like, there's like these two things where he keeps asking Virginia if she can run, then puts her in a car, and then the car goes out, and like it's so weird. And then they're like this when the car like breaks down. They then are running through the woods with a very strange thing. Instead of going over a log, she's like crawling under the log and the leaves.
Yeah.
And then Sherry has a change of heart in a way that you would never expect her to have, given what we've seen before. Doesn't
Wait, what
kill.
change of heart do you feel like Sherry has?
Well, she doesn't kill her, which,
Not right away.
like, that's kind of weird. And then,
Sherry is still a problem for this show because they have not written her in a way that makes sense.
nope,
She is so dedicated to this cause of killing Virginia, who she has never been wronged by,
exactly.
that it's extreme, and that only continues to get worse as the episode goes on because they now consider this like a faction, the baby doll face mask people,
Mm-hmm.
and by the end of the episode, I mean, we can wait till we get there, but Sherry makes zero sense, and I just feel like another massive disservice has been done to a character from
Right.
The Walking Dead.
Well, and I'm going to throw this out there because if Sherry has this sort of well-developed sense of vengeance, wouldn't she more likely be going after Negan,
Right?
who she
That's the
really
actual person who wronged her. Yeah.
and wronged her in some pretty horrific ways? Like, he basically kept her as a sex slave, and she had to watch him torture her husband. And, there are reasons why Negan would be a much better target for her ire than Virginia.
But for all Morgan and she and Dwight know, the Saviors have destroyed Alexandria. Actually, no, wait. Morgan left before the end, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know. But
think he
in
did.
any case, regardless, I just don't buy her animus towards Virginia. So that's weird. But then
You've also had the revelation that Virginia is Dakota's mother,
which I
which
don't
is
think is that you know.
Okay. But then it's just like, yeah, so then she killed. I still don't really understand why Virginia killed her parents.
No, I
I
mean, and they don't
They
even
were
go there.
disappointed in her. At first, I thought it was her dad was Dakota's dad,
That's what I thought too, and I
but
also
that
thought
doesn't seem
maybe
to be the case.
that doesn't seem like it's the case, but also I thought there might be some kind of abuse going on, either physical or sexual. That seemed to be where it was trending, but they didn't actually do that, so that was weird. That they didn't kind of come out and say what it was that Virginia was escaping. So are we to just sort of think that maybe Virginia is just psycho and did this because she was perceiving this? Because really, what I kind of got out of it, and I don't know if you read this as well, is that maybe she was like from a super conservative Christian family, and they just were ashamed of what it was that she had this baby out of wedlock and young, and so they kind of took it over, which I
Could
guess
be,
could
could
be,
be. It
but
was not
like,
well explained.
but it
It
wasn't
was
well explained, and certainly not explained why she would go through such lengths to say protect Dakota, where if you did have physical abuse or other types of abuse happening, that would make a lot more sense. And also, you know, Virginia's sort of craziness and Dakota's craziness for that matter would make a lot more sense if there was something like that happening, if there was like this, aside from the zombie
a real
apocalypse,
trauma.
if there
Yeah.
was some trauma going on. But they don't do that, which would have been really easy to write in, but they didn't.
Sherry also says to Morgan after he saves Virginia's life, like, you're as bad as she is. You say you're like, a good person, but you're just hurting people. I'm like, Sherry, he just told you that she has hostages.
Yeah, like,
Why
and
are you so intractable on this? These are people that you've met, I
right.
think. Maybe not.
I don't know that she's met them, but regardless, it's people that mean enough to Morgan that they're being held hostage. So, you know, and she understands what that is because of all the rejects that she's hanging out with, or whatever they call themselves. So that seems just like a strange line too. And then, you know, and then as the rest of it goes, like all the stuff that happens, like for example, why on earth would Morgan ever take Virginia any place that he would be known to go? He takes her to the place that's supposed to be secret and leads every single freaking person to this place.
And again, they're there within 45 seconds
Yeah, it's
of them
super
going inside.
fast. And you know, this place is supposed to be kind of secret, right? That was my impression, is that they were
That was
kind
the
of,
whole point.
the whole point was to keep this whole little settlement away off the radar. Now everybody knows about it, so that's insane. And then secondly, like, you could have easily taken Virginia someplace that nobody would know about and go and collect Dakota, or go and talk to everybody to talk about how we can get the hostages. Do something, but do anything but lead them to your secret settlement, right? That felt really dumb to me. And then
Extremely, extremely
okay,
dumb.
and then let's talk about once they get to the settlement, and you know, everybody's kind of surrounded, and it's this ridiculous back and forth, like, bring her out.
We
No,
want justice.
we want
Sherry's like,
justice.
I need to get justice for this. And the way she's acting is she has, oh yeah, and she's also telling Morgan, that's not your call. And I'm like, sure, you literally have zero stake in this fight.
Right.
You've never, like, have you even met Virginia before? No, you just hang out with a bunch of people who probably were abused by her. For some reason, you're their spokesperson. Makes zero sense. You should be in the truck, like, I don't know, counting bullets or whatever, something else. I don't know, understand why she's a leader for this group. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And then the other part that really doesn't make sense is the whole weird walkie-talkie exchange with
Yeah.
Strand, with the people on the inside and Strand, and it's like an Althea, like Al, like,
This could be a COVID thing where they're just like, all right, we want to have a conversation, but we can't have them be that close to each other.
oh,
So have him
maybe.
yell from 50 feet away into the walkie, and his voice will come out like he's just talking right into
Oh
it.
my
It'll be
God,
fine.
it's terrible. And then, you know, they finally have the whole, like, Virginia's like, okay, I'm going to give myself up. And no, I don't want to talk to Dakota. After all of that, she doesn't want to talk to
I
Dakota.
don't want to talk to Dakota and Morgan. You have to kill me.
Yep.
And also, why haven't the Rangers and the baby mask people just continue to drive around the dam. They
Right.
act as if it's this like impregnable
But
fortress. I'm like, no,
it's just in a little valley,
you're
right?
in a valley. You can just go around it. I've been to other lakes that have dams around them, and they're not like impregnable. They're just you have to drive a little bit or walk up.
Right. So, yeah, so that didn't make sense. And then there's the whole thing where Morgan goes through his like moral choice. There's a moral choices. There's a lot of like him having flashbacks of the wrongs that Virginia has done them, trying to psych himself up to cut her head off. And then, of course, he comes to the conclusion that he doesn't want to be as bad as her. And
At this
just,
point, I'm writing in my notes, God damn it, just fucking do it. I want this episode to end.
oh, I know. But also, let's just talk about the fact that they are all surrounded. They're surrounded by Rangers or former Rangers. They're surrounded by the baby doll face people. They're surrounded by Strand and his, whatever they are. And all of these people totally have a clear shot of her.
Yeah.
Like, if Morgan hesitates, why didn't any of them take that shot if they really want her dead? But no, it just continues this stupid
Oh.
standoff. And then they bring her back in and they do have her talk to Dakota. And, that was
And it goes badly.
it goes badly, but it's also a stupid exchange too. Like the whole thing where you could actually reveal some things to your kid. You just both have these stupid things. It's just terrible. It doesn't.
I
I don't.
should never. I shouldn't be alive, and none of us should be alive. Is something Dakota says, and I'm like, oh, somebody needs to write that down because that's just another reason why she should be
Killed.
put out to pasture. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is not a person. And how, in the name of all that is holy, are they going? I'm sorry, I'm skipping past the scenes, but we've already got a Charlie who killed Nick.
Yep.
Now we're going to have a Dakota who killed John. Are they
Yeah.
seriously going to do this exact thing twice? Or are they going to do it slightly differently? But come on already, right?
Yep.
Even Charlie's in some of these scenes just looking like, ooh, I don't know what you guys are thinking.
I know, and I think that I do think that you're right. Some of this may have had to do with the pandemic and how they had to like separate people or have people film it in a way, and maybe that's why it feels so disjointed, possibly. But I just think it's pretty bad storytelling, regardless. And
I mean, Colby Minifie and Lenny James are having a lot of scenes where their faces are micro inches away from each
Yep,
other. They
I
are
know.
right up on top of each other. She also has a lot of bra shots in this episode. I'm like, what's happening? I don't know if I'm supposed to take away from the amount of skin that Virginia is showing.
is it supposed to show us what kind of bras they have? Because I had that same thought. I was like, oh, this is odd. This is an odd
Nice
detail.
bra. No underwire. It's a good looking bra.
It's so strange. I noted this too. Actually, I put this in my notes. What's up with all the bra shots?
Why do we keep seeing Virginia's bra?
But
She's in good shape. Good for her.
and then ultimately, the satisfaction I wanted, and not satisfaction, but I mean, maybe I could see this if they ended this in a different way than they did.
This is honestly, in a way, it's the only good part about this episode. It's the only good thing, even if I disagree and I'm a little bit bemoaning June going off the deep end. She's wasted all of these resources, their limited medical supplies, bringing Virginia back from the edge, right? That's the kind of not shown but expressed by Virginia later on. She's like, "You saved me again.
Right.
Thank you so much." Because June has like taken the bullet out of her, I guess, and patched her up. And then
right.
So she's done all this work. She has a discussion where she's like, okay, yeah, this is karma, my daughter, your daughter, blah, 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 except it's not the same. And so I'm going to shoot you.
Well, so I guess my thing was, if you're going to do that, why wouldn't you also kill Dakota? Because if she's that far off the deep end, there's two people that probably would be dead in this episode. And the other one is Dakota. And
I mean,
that...
yeah,
What?
she doesn't want to blame the child, I guess, is the only reason I can think. Like June killing a kid, I think is, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're going to throw off the deep end, just go all the way.
Also, is this the first time Jenna Elfman has had her hair down in the entire show, and it was purely so that she could put John Dory's hat on at the end of the episode?
I think so, yep.
When I saw her with her hair down, I was like, "Oh, that's a different look for her." Oh, and she has a hat in her hand. Oh, okay. I think I know where this is going to go.
Yeah. So again, I just don't even know what to make of this. I don't know where they're going to go with this next. I'm assuming there's going to be some Lizzie look at the flowers moment with Dakota at some point, which may be why they kept her alive.
Why draw that out?
But
You know, if they are, I mean, I know it's only the second episode of the half season, but just get rid of her.
so what I thought was going to happen here is not, I didn't expect June to kill her in this moment. I thought what I thought they were going to maybe do is let Dakota and Virginia start to actually think that they were getting away. And then I thought June was going to probably take them out in the woods.
That would have been a better ending too, honestly.
And that nobody would know about it, basically.
Have June just hunt them down. Oh yeah. But the thing is, she just walks off out of the dam, walks into the wilderness just with a hat and his pistol and no other supplies.
Yep, that's it.
Part of me wants to see in the next episode, there's like some people out in the woods doing a like scavenging or a defensive sweep, and they just find her body. She's died of exposure.
Maybe.
But we get that. That'll be good.
This is just terrible. I don't know what to do. There's
It's
nothing
so
to
bad.
do.
And okay, and then did you watch the showrunner explication at the end, which under Andrea Kang, I was like, these are so great. This is the Angela Kang, not Andrea Kang. Angela Kang. So I think this one is Andrew Chambliss?
Yeah, it is Andrew Chambliss, not Andrew
Ian
Kang.
Chambliss, or...
If it was Angela Kang, this would have just been a totally different show entirely. But
God, could she run everything, please? So he's like, June has gone and done the one thing that John didn't want for this settlement. And I'm like, what? John wanted to kill himself. He didn't give a crap about this settlement. The last thing he thought was, I can try and nurse this wounded, traumatized Dakota back from the edge of being a psycho. He had nothing to say about the settlement and Morgan's axe and whether or not they should kill Virginia. He didn't really care.
And in fact, he didn't want to go to the settlement because he basically said to Morgan that no matter what you think, it's not what you think it is. It's not going to be this sort of like amazing sort of sanctuary. It's all going to go bad, just like Lawson did. And just like all these other places have. And that's sort of where he was in his thinking. Maybe he thought he could bring Dakota back from her nuttiness, but regardless, I don't think his intention was ever to go to the settlement. He had nothing invested in the settlement. So
makes me wonder if the showrunners even read the scripts or watch
the show because... Yeah, I felt like the after commentary was much like this particular episode itself, all over the place and just sort of didn't make sense. So,
this was the worst episode of this entire universe. I've never seen an episode that made me so dissatisfied with decisions and comments and scenes. Entire the shootout, the street lineup scene. Nothing has pissed me off more than this episode and in the entire Walking Dead universe.
There were some episodes that came close, but yeah, I think this one now wins the prize. Definitely. I honestly just don't even know what to do with it. And as I said, my wildest fears when you sent me that text were all realized. But even I didn't anticipate that it would just be such a disaster. But in any case, so if you have thoughts about this episode, Kevin, I'm talking to you, my friend. Send us your thoughts at Reanimated podcast@gmail.com or leave a note on the site, reanimatedpodcast.com, or you can certainly tweet at us. Maybe there'll be an angry tweet about this to Reanimated PCast, which is the Twitters. I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about the show, Stuart, before we sign off?
I mean, how many other cast members are going to ask to get off the show?
Probably all of them. My other question is now June off the show? Was that supposed to be her walk off too? Maybe.
We'll find out.
So,
well, also, I thought Alicia Debenham Carey looked a little bit pregnant in this episode. She is pregnant, but I don't think it was because she was pregnant looking in this episode.
No, but yeah. Well, so
she was wearing different pants than she usually wears.
She was wearing definitely different pants. I also was like, same thing. But the other part of this that I thought honestly, maybe it's going to bring back Madison. I thought that's where they were going to go with this ending, because Strand basically says to her, hey, I'm going to come up with a reason for you to go with me. And my only thought is, he going to now somehow produce Madison out of nowhere? And that didn't happen.
That sounded like a threat when he said that to Alicia. You know, he's like, "Oh, I'll find a way. You should come with me." And Sherry's like, "And I can't come into the settlement because I'm going to hang out with Raleigh and the mask people because we have a vision and a reason for existing, which was actually just to kill Virginia, and she's dead." So
Right. And Dwight,
there's
let's just say, like, man, the look on Dwight's face is like, man, why did I keep looking in cars for notes, or like,
yeah, for like 6
years,
months.
years I've been doing this, and you're hanging out with the mask people? I don't know. Just seems like a little bit of a letdown. No. So, anywho, let's wrap this one up, and I'm really curious to hear what people think, if they were as disappointed as we were.
Or if anybody has like a good defense for this episode, I'd hear it. I just think though that there isn't one. However, if you can think of one, please share it with us.
Well, until next time, ciao.
Yeah, bye, and we'll have more Fear the Walking Dead next time on Reanimated.